courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Please be seated.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Shushock, and I'm the grateful pastor here at Edges. I'd like to say welcome to those of you who must be responsible for holding down the Blacksburg fort over Thanksgiving. It's very important. Thanks for being with us this morning. A few announcements as we begin our time together. First of all, if you're new this morning, we'd love to help you get connected to everything that's happening at Edges, and one way you can do that is by stopping on your way out to see somebody, and I forgot who it is. Who's going to be at the welcome stand? Jackie. Jackie will be at the Jackie will be at the welcome stand right in the lobby after worship. And if you just give her your email address, we'll make sure that you get an email about once a week letting you know what's happening in the community. I have two announcements about things that are happening today. The first, you may have noticed on your way in, there was a tree with snow people. These are the snow people, and what they represent are children at Harding Avenue Elementary, our partner school, who need some help having Christmas with their family this year. So if you can pick up one of these snow people, purchase what's on the snow person, and bring it back by December 15th, that will help about 25 families at Harding Avenue Elementary be able to have Christmas this year. I should let you know that we have 25 snow people, and 10 of them were already taken just this morning after the first worship service, so hurry out to get your snow person if you'd like to be one who helps. Also, you need to see Jeanette Del Percio, who's right here, when you take your snow person, because she needs to record that, because we don't want any child to get left behind inadvertently, so it's really important that you don't just pick a person off the tree without letting Jeanette know the one that you've taken. That's why I'm going to hand this to her right now, so that I'm not responsible for losing one of our children. The other thing that's happening today right after worship is the 5th Sunday of our Faithful Steps Walking Through Recovery Together. I want to let you know about that today because it's the final one, and it's the one where we're talking about how our church community might be a part of some recovery efforts that are already underway in our town. I want to especially let you know if you have any connection to Virginia Tech, because Josh Redding will be with us today, and he's the leader of the recovery community at Virginia Tech, and he'll be with us to talk about how some of those connections can help be made. They only get made, though, if there are people on the other end to help make them, so we would like to invite everybody to stay for that right after worship. I also just ordered 5 pizzas. I hope you like one of them. Plenty of flavors if you stay. I have one more announcement, and it is this. Last week, we did something kind of crazy. We sold some purses in the lobby. Those purses are connected to a ministry in the Dominican Republic that we partner with called New Hope Girls. New Hope Girls is many things. It's women who help make purses for a living. It's young girls, 20 of them, ages now 4 to 16, who without New Hope Girls Safe House would still be living in unsafe environments, and who, because of New Hope Girls, are safe. It's also a connection to about 100 other young girls who live in the barrio, who we helped provide a camp for this past summer when 25 of us went to the Dominican Republic. And because last week, when you purchased those purses, 100% of the proceeds will go to help New Hope Girls. You purchased $1,725 worth of purses. 100% of that money will go to those girls in the barrio, and you should know that that money has been designated to help 20 full families who are connected to those 100 girls to have Christmas this year in a way they wouldn't otherwise have been able to celebrate. And I want you to know, when you take a snow person off the tree, in our context, it's really important to help a child have a single toy or a piece of clothing that they need or they want. But when you helped with $1,725 last week, you won't help children get toys or gloves or skateboards. You'll help families who wouldn't have been able to eat have a full Christmas. So in that barrio with thousands of people who struggle day to day, at least 20 of those families will now get to have food and to share that food with their neighbors because you simply walked outside and purchased an item last week. So I just want to say I'm grateful to be a part of a church that cares about people near and far in ways that we will help practically. And it just makes my heart grateful that we get to be a part of that story. So now if you'll pray with me with gratefulness, we'll continue worshiping together. Holy God, thank you for caring about every person in the world enough to want them to have what they need. And thank you for letting us be your partners. Help us to continue to see ways to participate, to love, to care, to offer our lives for the things that matter most in the world, which is that your love stays in motion throughout and that everyone feels it and knows it in their bones, that we are all safe. Keep reminding us where you need our help. Keep giving us the energy and the courage and the time and the resources and just the want to be part of the ever-evolving story of love. Now today, would you accept our worship and our presence as our willingness to learn something new? Amen.
Y'all please stand and join us as we sing. We sought the truth when we felt the pain, even wandered beyond our faith in the name. We cannot pretend we are always okay. We cannot depend on fast food grace. Help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I made you when my fear has contained you. Help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I made you when my fear has contained you. When the way is unclear and the answers elusive, He is different by far than our broken conclusions. You are not the God pain has conceived. You are deeper and stronger than my eyes can see. Help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I made you. My fear has contained you. Help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I made you just going to be present in this moment right here. We're not going to think about what we have for breakfast or what we're going to have for lunch or what we have to do. Feel free to pray in your seats. Visit the prayer wall or the rail and light a candle. But we're just going to relax in this moment together.
Hello and good morning. Isn't that one of the hardest things to do? Just to sit and be still in the presence. It's hard, but it's so beautiful, the results. Anyways, my name is Justice, and I am a grateful member of this community, and I'm grateful for right now. Before we get into anything, I just want to address the elephant in the room, the weather. So who in this room today actually likes cold weather? Raise your hand. Wow, we've got quite a few. Well, you're in the right town, I think, if you like cold weather. I obviously don't. I don't have a lot of long sleeve shirts or coats, but I notice some of you do have some nice clothes on. But I used to really like cold weather when I was a little kid. When I was in grade school, cold weather meant the possibility of snow. And the possibility of snow meant the possibility of a 2-hour delay. And isn't that the best thing? And even better, maybe a day off of school, like the best thing. Not to mention my mom's white chicken chili. So Mom, if you're listening, which I know you are, that's what I want when I come home this week. But now with this weather, I find myself more than ever holding on to the few colored leaves on the trees. I find myself introducing Christmas music much earlier than usual into my schedule. And I find myself watching all of my childhood shows on Disney+. Really anything to distract me from this cold weather. Because I know some of the realities of the cold weather. Seasonal depression, or the hustle and bustle to plan to get every single thing right for incoming family, for friends, the traveling, all of the forward thinking, and even the forward thinking of whether or not any of us have made it on Santa's naughty or nice list. The important things. So I got coffee with a friend earlier this week, and she said, Justice, have you ever noticed that whenever somebody brings up the weather in conversation, it's usually because they don't want to talk? I said no, but I do have a sermon coming up, so thank you for the idea. But really, I wonder if that sentiment is fully true. Maybe weather is something we just all have in common, a story that we all share. I do know that there is this recurring theme of weather in my own life where I am always anticipating the next season or the season that we're not in. So when it's winter, I can't wait for summer. I can't wait for the sun. When it's summer, I can't wait for cool fall evenings. It's this inability to just live in the present, to be grateful for right now. And I wonder if this could be true for many of life's rhythms rather than just weather. As soon as I finish this exam, life will be good. As soon as I graduate, life will be good. As soon as I land my dream job, life will be good. As soon as the number on the scale represents the number that society tells me is good, life will be good. As soon as I find my life partner, life will be good. As soon as my kids mature and realize that I was right all along, life will be good. As soon as my parents realize that I'm okay and my decisions are right, life will be good. Whatever it is, as soon as today is tomorrow and tomorrow's differences are today, life will certainly, undoubtedly be good. Maybe. So, what happens when this changeover isn't as immediate as we would like it to be? What happens when our today becomes tomorrow and we are still facing the same problems we've always faced? Or maybe even scarier, what if life is always changing? We just don't know how to notice it. I think these are certainly some questions that have the potential to shape us. So my question for you is this. It's a question that I've been chewing on for quite some time, really ever since I graduated. What is keeping you from living in the present? So go ahead, call some answers back out to me. Future events. Thinking about the future can be more fun. Yes. What was that? Say it one more time. So Carolyn says, or Nicole says, unmet past expectations. So it can be either a future or a past. Financial stress. We're always worried about what will happen next. Yeah. Cell phones. Lack of gratefulness. Okay, we're on a roll. We got to keep going. Rehashing something bad that happened in the past. We're waiting till we figure out how in the heck to live well. I don't have any clean... Me neither, Kelly. I don't have any clean... That's why I'm going home. So, all of these things. And the thing about this type of thinking isn't new. It's actually in the very DNA of our history. It has quite literally been documented in the Old Testament stories with the first people trying to figure out how to live in the moment. These people knew a few things about this type of waiting, this type of impatience for a better future, this desperation and need for a breakthrough, a hope for something or someone to come into the picture and interrupt the recurring stories. So the past few weeks, we've been thinking through this series titled The Stories That Shape Us, in which we have explored the history, our history, that has shaped the landscape of today. We have looked at this theme from several different lenses, both close up and far back. We have looked at it in ways of how our personal stories have shaped the people we are today, and on the other hand, how our overall historical narrative has shaped the world that we live in today. For example, all of our families have in some way shaped the people that we are today, for better or for worse, for better and for worse. And when we think about our historical narrative, we see that our history has strong roots of enslaving people, which has shaped the systems of today. We have analyzed some of these critical decisions that the early people made, and the very real consequences that have carried in to now. Today, we are going to jump right back into the Old Testament narrative. So it's around 800 BC, which means a long time ago. And the Israelites and Judeans have been through it. From enslavement to freedom, and now confusion of where their next steps are, all while they're seeking to grow and become who they're meant to be. As we enter the narrative told from the perspective of the Israelites and the Judeans, we find that they are facing corrupt leadership and immense pressure on their borders. Two more things that have crept its way into today. So the baby nations Israel and Judah find themselves starting to rebuild as they navigate their freedom, when suddenly they find themselves surrounded by much larger nations: the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and the Persians, all of whom had big plans of growing and expanding. And in order to grow and expand, these nations have to conquer, they have to kill, and they have to displace people into exile. A means for expansion, for growth. And this is how the story begins to unfold. Israel is the first to fall, as Assyria invades and deports most of the Israelites. The Israelites are forced to intermarry with the Assyrians, thus losing their distinct identity as the children of Abraham. And in this culture, in this time period, bloodline was everything. It was most people's greatest hope for a future, a promise for an inheritance, a legacy that might one day look different. So right here, we notice a shift. We see lines begin to blur, as the Israelites must compromise their cultural identities for their survival. They lose the tightest, most clutched parts of who they are and who they will one day be. So now their outer identity is no longer fixed, which means their destiny may no longer be the same. Their inheritance may no longer be guaranteed. And their control surely is still not in their wheelhouse. As for the Judeans, they faced very similar realities. So they resisted for about another century as the Assyrian power slowly declines. However, in that time, the Babylonian power was rising. And what followed is this: Babylonia conquered Judah, demolished most of Jerusalem, and enslaved or deported most of the Judeans. This captivity, this enslavement and exile continued for nearly 70 years until the Persians came into the picture, overtaking the Babylonians. And while the Persian Empire's control was much more lenient, the Judeans found themselves still at the heel of the Persian Empire. How about that for a story? That's a lot of power dynamics switching out and in from control. So the Judeans, free, but still in captivity. Survivors, but still defeated. More and more blurred lines. I wonder what was going through their heads at this point. Where is the good in this? Where is God in this? When will we be the greatest nation? When will our story change? I also wonder if the other empires had those similar thoughts too. I wonder if the Assyrians and the Babylonians and the Persians, if they were all thinking similar things, if they were all simply wishing for a better tomorrow, a growth and expansion that would interrupt their story long enough for it to end in good. So as we further dig into Brian McLaren's book, We Make the Road by Walking, we are constantly invited to challenge the way we read and interpret the Bible. McLaren says that as the Old Testament people matured in their understanding of human affairs, so did their understanding of God and life. They realized that life exists on a gray scale much more than it does black and white. They realized that there is both good and bad woven into all of our stories. Even sometimes the Bible's best did really bad things. And even sometimes the Bible's worst did really good things, really holy things. Could it be that this complex collection of stories that we call the Old Testament be a fitting reflection of our stories, of our lives? Pastor Kelly mentioned last week that when we read the scriptures in isolation, we run the risk of hurting ourselves and other people. I wonder if this statement is true for our life stories as well. I wonder if we do ourselves a painful disservice when we look at our own life stories in isolation, without connecting the stories to our past and the scriptural stories of what's to come, what's promised. And I wonder if we do ourselves a disservice when we refuse to realize that our stories are connected to the people around us, and that we need them and their stories to make sense of and continue shaping our own. For me, as I navigate my 20s as a baby adult, I'm almost always tempted to look at my life story, in isolation. Without community and the purpose found alongside community, I'm crippled by my heart's desires and my mind's questions. I am confused why I'm not living my best life. I'm confused even what my best life even is. And to be honest, entering community at times frightens me for the reason that my controlled plans for my life might be altered, that my hopes and dreams might expand, that my purpose and my identities might evolve. My fear doesn't lie in wondering if the story ends well. My fear lies in the reality that the story that is shaping my life is still being written. Unfinished, changeable. And the fact that my story is not an isolated one, but one that exists within the intersections of all people, connection. To be quite frank, life since graduating college has not exactly gone according to my plan. My frustrations and anxiety about my current circumstances feel crippling, at times like I'm drowning. And usually the last thing I want to do is to talk about it. There is a certain, yet unsustainable, always unsustainable, comfort in having my own feelings, my own thoughts, to my own self. My story. However, a while back, I had a phone call scheduled with a mentor of mine right in the thick of my mess. And this stressed me out. What was I supposed to say to them? What would they think of me? How could I fabricate an ending to the unfinished story, a solution to my unresolved life? How could I control my narrative enough to seem good and right? So I eventually mustered up the courage to answer the phone that evening, and what happened surprised me. My usual instinct proceeded, first, to protect myself through creating a controlled narrative which only served to derail me further and further away from my mentor or any possible solution. So what happened, I eventually gave in. I unraveled and I let the messy, jagged, broken, confusing, hard edges of my life to be the very things that connected me to my mentor. And rather than solution, which my mentor couldn't provide, she provided something far greater. Hope. Hope. My mentor sent me an excerpt from Bittersweet, the chapter titled Learning to Swim. And this is what it says. If you dig in and fight the changes, they will smash you to bits. They'll hold you under, drag you across the rough sand, scare and confuse you. But if you can, in the wildest of seasons, just for a moment, trust in the goodness of God, who made it all and holds it all together, you'll find yourself drawn along to a whole new place. And there's truly nothing sweeter. Unclench your fists, unlock your knees, and the door to your heart. Take a deep breath and begin to swim. Begin to let the waves do their work in you. I wonder if the security and freedom needed to live in the moment, in the present, comes from an awareness of our past and a hope for our future. For example, when the Israelites look at the totality of their story, the fullness of their story that has shaped their living, God is in the center of it all the time. Using Moses to lead them out of slavery, providing the 10 Commandments as a door to a fuller life, and even being with them through the rise and fall of different empires, the shuffle, amidst all the changes and shifts in leadership, identity, and mindset, pointing them towards the good that's still to come. I think God might be telling us that when we are unable to live into the present and see the goodness of God, we need to recognize our life is a constant in and out, between the lines, a ricocheting from good to bad to good. It's inconsistent. It's messy. We get it right sometimes and we get it wrong sometimes. And still, the call for us isn't to get it right more. That call is far too high. I believe our call is to slow down long enough to get into community and conversation with God and God's people. Therein lies our hope. Because in community, we find the remaining pieces of our story. Hope is our most tangible answer. Hope in the form of belief and hope in the form of relationship. What we find in community is conversation, We find a conversation that is a continuation of our own story, a variance of interpretations, a variance of understandings, and even a variance in belief. And somewhere in that shuffle of interpretations is the whole, good, right truth. Widening our circle doesn't cloud the truth, but actually adds more clarity to it that we would not have been able to arrive at on our own. That is why we need people, all people. The more people, the more God we are able to know, and the more of ourselves we are able to understand. We need both God and people to see and make sense of our living and breathing story. I think God is telling me, run towards community justice, because in community you will find hope-filled purpose. I think God is telling me, justice, keep running towards your questions, keep running towards your doubts, keep running towards your open and available uncertainty, because those are the very things, sized conversations that you were made for. And I truly believe that God is saying to me, keep going justice. Keep living into right now, because there is a day coming where the whole story will make sense. And it's a good story, justice. I know this and can trust this because Isaiah 2:5 says this: there is a day coming when the mountain of God's house will be the mountain, solid, towering above all mountains. All nations will river toward it. People from all over set out for it. They'll say, come, let's climb God's mountain. Go to the house of God of Jacob. He'll show us the way he works so we can live the way that we were made. Zion's the source of the revelation. God's message comes from Jerusalem. He'll settle things fairly between nations. He'll make things right between many peoples. And listen to this: they'll turn their swords into shovels, their spears into hoes. No more will nation fight nation. They won't play war anymore. Come, family of Jacob, let's live in the light of God. I think we're all invited into a life that is right now, that is light right now, both because of what is to come and because of what is already here within us and for us now. Better days aren't coming because we get to wait for God to come in and make things better, but because God is here now. God is in people and creation. God is in doubt-filled thoughts and question-filled conversations. I just think we need more than two eyes to see it at times, more than one mind to comprehend it, more than just ourselves to believe it. It's in these conversations that we're invited to live into the light of God right now. So won't we let our story, continue to be shaped by one conversation after another? Amen.
Every week we gather at this table. It's called the table of communion. Another way of saying the table of community. And we've placed it in the middle of this room so that we can remember that God means to be at the center of our everything, at the center of all of our stories. And we come together to sort of reenact one moment that is a for all time impression. We do it because we remember a night when Jesus sat with his friends before his own death, and they shared a meal together. And in that meal, Jesus took the bread from the table, and he held it up and thanked his Father for it. And then he looked his friends in their eyes and said to them, "This bread is my body. It's broken for you. I want you to take it and eat it, and I want you to remember me." Literally, I'll be with you. I'll be in you. You don't have to live in isolation. And then Jesus took the cup and he poured it out for them, and he said to them, "This cup is the cup of a new covenant that I'm always making with you. It's poured out for the forgiveness of your sins, for all the ways you screw it up and don't have it right, for all the ways your story isn't finished yet. I want to help you. I'll be there for you. I'll be there with you. We'll live our story together." It was a moment with those friends and with these friends because our story is still being written across all time. We celebrate and participate with the hope and the belief and the trust that God will help us to live the way we were made, in the light that is God. And that's why everybody is always invited to participate in this moment, because the grace of God, the story of God, is for everyone. If you choose to participate this morning, you'll simply come forward. Someone will hand you a piece of bread. You'll dip it into the cup and you'll hear some words of Christ spoken over you, and then you'll eat the bread and wait to see what is the story that God keeps sweeping your life up into, maybe in ways that you can understand differently. If our servers and our musicians would come at this time, I'd love to pray for us as we gather. I should also let you know that all of the bread at Edges is gluten-free. We hope that helps some of you be able to participate. Now, would you pray with me as we gather? Holy God, what a miracle you've given. What a gift to be a part of a story that we can't know on our own. Thank you for promising to help us collect the pieces from you and from each other so that we can more fully realize and become who we were made to be. Thank you for the stories just in this community, just in this room this morning, and how they've helped me and others to know who we are and who we are becoming. How they've helped me find truth and light and hope, tangible hope. Thanks for the way the stories of others help us sometimes know stuff that we wouldn't have known without them. And today we just want to thank you that and recognize that that's a gift that comes from you. Help us to keep signing on. We pray with Christ because you ask us to, and because we need help. Amen.
Source of its supply is in the highlands and the heartache. You're neither more or less inclined, and I would search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. I will praise you on the mountain. I will praise you in the mountains and my way. You're the summit where my feet are sky within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Know how far beneath your glory does your kindness extend the path from where your feet rest on the sunrise to where you sweep the sinner's past. Know how fast would you come running if just to shadow me through the night? Trace my steps through all my failures and walk me out the other side. For who could dare ascend the mountain, the valley, hill called Calvary? For the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. And I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Whatever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains. Wherever I stand, if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows my song of ascent. Oh, whatever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains. Wherever I stand, and if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows my song of ascent. From the gravest to all the valleys, come the pastures we call grace. A mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. And I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Will y'all please stand as we sing one more together? Full of life now and full of passion.
How he made you, just let So take me back to the beginning, when I was young, running through the fields with you. So take me back to the beginning, when I was young, running through the fields with you. So take me back to the beginning, when I was young, running through the fields with you. So take me back to the beginning, when I was young, running through the fields with you. So take me back to the beginning, when I was young, running through the fields with you. So take me back to the beginning, when I was young, running through the fields with you.
So, a good friend of mine has this quote on her door, and it says, "And now, with God's help, I shall become myself." Friends, I hope we can trust that this journey and our story was never an isolated one. Amen.